We're here on Smith Street in Darwin City, obviously in the aftermath of Cyclone Fina. The warnings have now been reduced and we want Territorians to be going back to their business as usual. Now obviously there remains to be significant debris, trees down and even power lines, but Territorians who need to move about for essential reasons such as restocking their fridges, having to take items to dump points and other necessary travel are encouraged to do so safely. What we know is that there are around 19,500 homes and businesses that lost power over the last 24 hours. And our crews have been out on the ground tirelessly working through what that footprint looks like and how we restore power as soon as possible. That information will come to light later this afternoon and people are encouraged to follow the Power and Water Corporation website where they will identify the outage areas and when areas can come back online. Of course, families are really keen to understand whether or not they'll be sending their children to school tomorrow, and we very much want to make sure that we are returning to a business as usual in a safe and measured way. And so principals have now been asked to go and visit their school. It's safe for them to do that and make those assessments school by school on whether or not they're fit and ready to be welcoming students back in their doors first thing tomorrow morning. That will then be communicated to all parents across the afternoon so that all families have certainty around what tomorrow looks like. We've had significant damage around properties and of course there are some road closures and we now are moving to flooded roadways and other causeways. But generally speaking, I just want to thank Territorians for how well they have cooperated and heeded all of the advice from our officials. We acted really early with our emergency services right when this was a low pressure system, and then the Territory stood up its Emergency Operations Centre with the Territory Controller, that is the Police Commissioner, moving into that role, where we've regularly updated Territorians around how important it is that they be prepared. And so this cyclone saw a Territory that was united and prepared for what was to come, and as a result we've seen a largely minimal impact and no injuries as a result. Warramunga experienced the greatest brunt of Cyclone Fina, and Darwin expect winds of up to 109 kilometres an hour. So it's understandable that there is damage. Warramunga is likely to have longer periods of power outages, however there is some diesel redundancy on the island that we can utilise, and we will communicate more directly with the people affected over there over the coming hours. I'm now very happy to pass on to the Territory Controller, Martin Doe, who is also the Police Commissioner.
Thank you, Chief. I just want to reinforce what the Chief said and give my congratulations to Territorians for their preparedness, for their willingness to listen to the advice and the messaging, and as a result of Territorians' responsiveness, we've had no reports of injuries and no significant damage across the Darwin region. I'll just remind the public we are still in a response stage and we still have an active cyclone within the Northern Territory, and there still is severe weather warnings out today by the BOM. So whilst we're encouraging people to get about their business and get back to normality, please continue to check the messaging, please continue to adhere to the BOM warnings, and just be aware that there is some difficulties with traffic, there is some roads closed, and for the most up-to-date messaging available, please continue to look at Secure NT and continue to look at the BOM site throughout the day for the most current warnings. I'll hand to the Chief Officer of Northern Territory Emergency Services now.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I also want to echo Commissioner Dole's congratulations to Territorians for their preparedness for this event. Thank you very much for that. As we go forward, you will see a number of the emergency service vehicles for across all of the services and our fire agencies out as part of the cleanup. You'll also see contracting vehicles, and you will see trucks and those sorts of things moving about. Please be mindful that they're out there cleaning up so that you can get back to normal as fast as we possibly can. If you require assistance in relation to storm damage, please dial 132 500. Please do not ring 000 just for normal storm damage. 000 is for life-threatening emergencies, and we'd like to keep it that way. Thanks very much.
We're happy to take questions.
Do you have any ideas of how many people have called for help from the NCS?
We've got just over 500 jobs as we speak.
Are you going to call in the ADF to help with the
We've been working with the ADF throughout this entire process. They've been embedded in our Emergency Operations Centre, and they've been out on the Tiwi Islands supporting this entire effort for the whole week. What we've done now is made sure we've prepared all of the administrative paperwork should we require military assistance, and then that will be a matter for the federal government to approve. At this stage, we're still going through all of our assessments, so we've not made the request, but we stand ready should we need it.
What other requests are you going to make to the federal government for help?
So it's very normal during times of natural disasters and cyclones that then funding is sourced from the federal government for a range of things. One could be for emergency payments to people, it could be for damage to infrastructure and assets, and when it's catastrophic, obviously that funding then increases. So there are levels. What it requires is the territory to do the analysis on what those costs look like and then apply to the federal government for funding, which is normally apportioned in part, not in full. So all of our paperwork and our liaison with the federal government is well and truly advanced. We've done that early to be ready for if and when we need it. And certainly I spoke to the federal minister yesterday morning who reinforced that. It's just now is a time for doing that impact assessment so that we can understand what that landscape and that need looks like, both here for in the Darwin region, but of course let's not forget in the communities of Minjalang and Warrawee and Warramyanga who've also been impacted.
Do you have any more information on the damage at the Royal Darwin Hospital?
Royal Darwin Hospital last night had a 4x4 metre square area of its ceiling collapse. There were no injuries to staff or patients, and it did not impact patient outcomes or our ability to look after the people in our care in hospital. We've had engineers making assessments, and I don't have any further updates other than to say it is business as usual at Royal Darwin Hospital, and that one incident has not had an operational impact.
We've heard a lot of people say Category 3, this would have been a lot more serious damage-wise. Is that a testament to how Territorians have prepared?
I think today shows just how prepared everyone was, and I want to thank wholeheartedly our emergency services team, our police, and everyone who was stood up as part of our Emergency Operations Centre for their unbelievable and unrelenting work over the last 2 weeks. This has been a 24-hour operation where we have been assessing at every level impacts to Territorians and providing support where it was needed and planning ahead. And because of the clear communication coming from the Territory Controller and his team, what we were able to do is make sure that Territorians stepped up and played their part, and they did that well. I'm very proud to be a Territorian today, where we stood together as a community, listened to the advice of our emergency services professional, were prepared, did what we needed to do, and now, merely hours later, are able to relatively freely move back around our community. That's credit to that preparatory work, and it shows the strength of the Territory community.
How long do people expect to be without power for?
We've had power and water crews out for many hours now making their assessments. So they are finalising that assessment work and will then move through what needs to come next. Priority areas for us returning power are of course schools, because we want our kids back in the classroom tomorrow where it's safe to do so. And so schools will be a particular government infrastructure asset where we put a lot of priority on. As I said earlier, Power and Water will be updating their website so people can have a clear idea of what areas are experiencing outages. And I'm hopeful by the end of this afternoon there will be much clearer communication coming from Power and Water to Territorians around what type of lengths of time each suburb might have to sit tight and be ready to endure given the outages they're particularly experiencing.
If the cyclone markers some suburbs all without power for up to 2 weeks, I mean, looking at that type of time frame again potentially?
Look, I just don't have that information in front of me. I don't expect so, but it could be days.
Is there any consideration to revisit the underground power project?
We know that Labor promised Territorians to underground their power for nearly a decade, and that work just simply wasn't done. And that's because they couldn't afford it, because they blew our budget to smithereens, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to undertake that work. Now, it's never off the table, but what we're doing right now is responding to the cyclone that's before us. Discussions around what comes next is obviously always on the table, but given our very dire budgetary restraints, it makes it very difficult to see a pathway forward in the immediate future.
This is obviously cleanup is going to take days, possibly weeks. What's your advice to people waiting for help with things like downed trees on their properties? Just be patient.
Yeah, we need people to be patient at this time, and in true Territory spirit, neighbours are coming out with chainsaws and gardening snippers, and everyone's chipping in behind each other, and I think that's really special and important. I just want to say to Territorians to make sure you're still looking after your family, your yard, and doing what you need to do at home, including assessing what's in your fridge and whether or not, if your power's out for more than 4 hours, you really must dispose of those perishable items like meat, for example, and dairy. But our emergency services also need space to do what they need to do, but there's always room for community spirit, and people just need to really assess the risk. We don't want any injuries, we don't need any heroics. We have professionals who are our heroes, and they're the ones out there doing the really tough stuff. But we encourage everyone to stick together and support their neighbours.
Is there any more detail about the Tiwi Islands and the impact there? I know there was some concerns that compared to Darwin, the houses are not so much there.
No, I might pass on to the Territory Controller as well, but so far my briefing today is that everyone was in really good spirits last night. Of course, people living on the Tiwis are well accustomed to this type of cyclone threat. That doesn't ever make it any easier, but our cyclone shelter was well occupied, and we do have houses in Warramianga that were properly cyclone coded. So I'll pass on to the Territory Controller, he might have more information.
Guys, we'll just do this one question with the Commissioner and then we'll jump out.
Thanks, Chief. So the Tiwi Islands yesterday did see more of a brunt than Darwin as a result of Tropical Cyclone Fina. The assessment this morning is that Milakarpiti was not affected, Burlingimbi was not affected, but Warramianga did have some damage to some infrastructure, particularly the power infrastructure. An assessment has been done on that this morning, and it's continuing to be done throughout the day by Parramatta Authority. And it may be some days before they see full restoration of power on the islands, but no widespread damage to properties or buildings, and no reports of injuries across the island either, which is very pleasing.
Any injuries
Thank
at
you,
all?
everyone. Thank you.